I'm going to do 3 videos on basic content creation. It's just something I've been speaking to some friends about. They're interested in getting into it. This is going to be really basic. That's all you need to really get yourself going. And then what I would recommend to people who enjoy it is they do then the research on other videos that are available out there on the internet that basically tailor their needs. This is just to get stuck into it. So today we're going to start with just a basic introduction to content creation. By way of background, I've always liked documentaries and movies that are well put together. I got into diving in the mid-90s, and some of the people I dived with would bring cameras with them, so I was watching them, but too expensive for me. Later I went to the Himalayas in 2006. I thought, well, I got to take me a camera to that, don't I? So I got myself a camera, took some footage, and the next thing was, well, I need to put it together. I need to edit it. So I learnt how to do some basic editing. And things just evolved from there. I started using those same editing skills to video and put together videos of programs I was doing with participants, adventure activities, and I could then market those programs to sponsors and show people what we were doing in the program. So nothing speaks louder than video, doesn't it, to explain what you're doing. Anyway, moving right along to 2013, that's when I got into cave diving, and I had an instructor who had one of these on his mask, and what he used it for was to basically video our dive skills. And at night we'd watch them, but I'd also watch the footage. I go, oh, that's pretty good. Maybe I could get into underwater videography now. All I need is one of those. So that's what I got, and that takes me to the next point, which is cameras. What do you need? Well, use whatever you got. If you've got a camera lying around the house that does video, start with that. You'll be surprised how good it is. If you've got a smartphone, use a smartphone. Now, I'm not a big fan of smartphones because of the privacy issues, but the cameras on them, the videos on them are actually pretty good. And some people do all their content creation just using smartphones. But then what you'll probably find is you will get cameras to suit your interests, which is what I did. That's why I got this. This is a GoPro Hero 3 Black, and yeah, it's basically, there's not much to it. It's just a little camera, very compact, and you can use it outside the housing, but most people keep it in the housing, and certainly if you're underwater, that's what you have the housing for. You can take this camera down to 60 meters, which is going to be way deeper than most people will go when they scuba dive, but very resilient camera. And it's lasted me for many years. But what changed and what got me to upgrade and get another camera was I had some other diving friends. They were doing some really good footage, and they were using one of these. This is a Sony RX100. I'm assuming Sony makes similar cameras to this date. These are lovely cameras, and you can get a housing for these as well, which of course is going to make it a little bit more expensive, but the footage from these is really good underwater. The problem is the audio is terrible, absolutely terrible, which takes me to the next camera, the one you're listening to me through right now. The GoPro Hero 9 Black is not just a really good camera, it has really good functionality, good stabilization, like a super smooth image, so it's good when you're doing activities on your bike, things like that. And it's got a microphone that you can attach that's actually like covered in foam, and it will block out a lot of the ambient noise that can then cause some issues. So this is actually my go-to camera at the moment for a lot of the activities I do. It's really versatile. What else before I move on? Yeah, I'm going to just touch on this. This is a little microphone. You can pin this to yourself or clip it to yourself, and that plugs into a a recording device, or it can plug into your smartphone. You can download audio software. So if you're using one of these and it's bad audio, great video, you might want to record the audio separately. And you know when you see people in movies going action or clapping their hands together or something like that, that's all about synchronizing the various devices they've got. So cameras here, cameras there, cameras everywhere, audio devices everywhere, and they want to basically put them on the editing track and synchronize them. So that's why they do that. And I do it too. I'll basically go like that if I'm synchronizing, I'm recording audio separately. That's a very cheap thing you can buy, highly recommended. But audio is something I'll touch on in a moment. That, you know, again, how long's a piece of string? Finally, I've got a couple of cheap lights here. Just like audio, you can get some really expensive lights, but these are pretty cheap. And what they are is they plug in with a USB plug into a battery, and the light here has several different settings of brightness and also several different settings of warmth and color. So I've got a couple of those, and they're really good also for using on things like Zoom. And a lot of people record their Zoom calls, like in interviews. So let's just talk very briefly about settings. I recommend 1080p. P stands for pixels. And that is one of these go-to resolutions that people have used for years, high definition. If you want to know more about what it actually means, then you can look up videos for that. But 1080p is my go-to resolution, even though it's not the highest available, because most people will look at the footage through one of these. And even if you look at it on a big television in your lounge room, 1080p HD is still pretty good. But if you want to go higher, then the next thing is 4K. And there are settings even above that, resolutions above that. I use 4K sometimes in low light, but even though I will sometimes record in 4K in low light or underwater sometimes, I still upload in 1080p at this stage. So I recommend using 1080p when you start off, and most of your devices will be able to film in that. Then there's frame rate. You could have 24 frames per second, 25, 50, you could have 60, or you can even have more than that. So basically I shoot for the most part at the moment at 50 frames per second. I have done videos at 24, at 25 and 30. I had a drone for a while that shot in 30. Most of the stuff I've done the last couple of years are either 30 or 50. And if you see, you know, the basically you can't find all these settings, but you have your camera saying PAL and NTSC, you might need to check both of them out, because 25 and 50 are under PAL, and 24, 30, 60, that's all NTSC. So I'm not going to go into what that stands for and where it comes from, but basically the only thing you need to understand of relevance now, because most people use digital cameras, is the frame rate. And 25 frames per second is probably more than adequate if you've got it on a tripod and you're talking to it, but I like 50. And if you're going to consider doing slow motion videography, you're going to need more than that, because you're going to slow it down and you'll see all the frames if you don't. I'm going to give you 5 basic recommendations today. Okay? 1, handheld shots. If you have the capacity to zoom in and zoom out, keep it wide and keep it still, and let people move in and out of the shot. It's the easiest way of doing a steady image. Yes, you can do pans as well, and you might want to work at those, but you might need a really good tripod to make them really smooth. If you zoom in and you do pans, or you try and look at things, you're going to get footage that moves around. So keep it wide. Get a good tripod. You will use a tripod, and that's really good for keeping a steady image as well. So, number 2 is audio is important, but don't get too hung up on it. You will notice that there is some ambient noise even in this video. You've got birds flying around, people drilling next door, things like that. Unless it's really distracting for a long period of time, let it go. All right? It's as long as you can hear the person talking, I will wager that most people have listened to a video of someone they find very engaging, and even though the audio is not perfect, as long as they can hear them, that's good enough. So work on your audio, develop your audio, get better audio equipment, because it does make your content better, but it doesn't stop people watching it if you're engaging, as long as it's not too distracting. So if you have lots of distracting ambient noise, yeah, find another place, okay? But if it's just the occasional car moving past and things like that, there's nothing you can do about it. Deal with it. All right. 3, music, soundtrack. Yeah, so good. So good, they will make your videos so much better. But use royalty-free music and avoid copyright issues. I will talk more about this on the next video, but you can find most of the music you're going to need on sites like Incompetech.com and filmmusic.io. There are others, but if you go on there and you look at the instructions and you look at how they want you to credit the composer, that's all you need to do. Of course, you might want to pay a deposit as well, and you know, I do both. I will credit them, and occasionally I will pay a deposit as well, a donation, because the music is so good and I use it a lot. But yeah, royalty-free music also, without, for me, having words, having, you know, like a song, for me that's just distracting in the background. Unless I was making a music video, because then in the background I wouldn't have the music, I'd have the vision. It's the other way around. But for me, it's the vision and the story of what I'm videoing. So the music I don't like with words in it. But that's personal preference. So moving on to number 4, avoid flashy transitions. Essentially, editing often less is more. Okay, I use dissolve, fade to black, and sometimes I use no transition at all. The only reason you'll want to use another transition is if it adds to the story. But you know, my advice is let it be the exception rather than the rule. Keep it simple. And finally today, editing programs, and this is going to be what we're going to segue into next time when we get some footage and we upload it and we edit it. Basic editing programs are more than adequate. You don't need to go out and get the best editing program early on. Yes, they're great, and as you develop you might find you need one, but initially you just need the ability essentially to put your video and some soundtrack and a voiceover and maybe an overlay and also some comments on. As long as you can do all that and you can adjust your audio and you've got some options that you can do a bit of post-production in, that should be enough. So you can get free programs that can do that, and you can pay a couple of $100s and get a really good one. So yeah, they'll be more than adequate for most of what you want to do. And then if you really get into this and you want to get into all kinds of like animation and everything else, then yes, you will probably want to get a professional subscription. But next time we're going to talk about this, and again, it's going to be basic editing on a basic computer with basic editing programs. So I'll leave it at that, and I will see you in the next video.